So, a very good evening to everyone. Hope you all are doing well and staying safe at home. My name is Chavendra Dunuvila and I am the media coordinator for Stock Exchange Mentoring. To learn more about us, you can always visit our website stockexchangementoring.lk. In the website, you will always find an up-to-date portfolio on all our courses. It will include a technical analysis course as a fundamental course. So next week, we'll be introducing the Sinhalese version of our beginners course, and we'll also be introducing a new course on unit trust. Also, when you visit our website, you'll be able to find the news and media section where there will be an up-to-date information about the latest happenings in the market. So a small introduction of the webinar today. This webinar is regarding financial statement analysis. It will be a 6-week course, and once the course is completed, you will have an extremely comprehensive knowledge regarding the financial statement analysis. So registrations are still open for this course, and you can always visit our Linktree and social media pages to register once the webinar is concluded. So without taking too much of your time, allow me to introduce you to our lecturer for today. He's an individual with over 9 years of experience in equity research, asset management, commercial banking, and much more, and is also a visiting lecturer in several state and private institutions. So without further ado, please welcome Mr. Raghuram Ramakrishnan.
Thanks, Chavendra, for the introduction, and I warmly welcome all the participants here to today's webinar. As Chavendra had elaborated, so the main focus point of today's seminar is that the CSE Stock Exchange Mentoring has introduced a new section or subject called financial statement analysis, and they wanted me to introduce what are the course contents. So here, what I'm gonna tell you in this webinar is I'm not gonna focus on about the syllabus per se, and those who have done A-level accounting or have some sort of background in financial analysis or maybe in accounting, you know what might be included in this segment. But the focus in this lecture would be to non-finance guys. End of the day, most of you are investing in the stock exchange, and the main point here is, or main thesis here is, we want to transfer the knowledge for you guys to make an informed decision. End of the day, market is working in fundamental, at least in other market, that is what been proven. But in Sri Lanka, of course, various other factors contributing, such as sentiment, the external sectors, we call it black swan events, and demand and supply. But if you look, or maybe Sri Lanka still at the nascent stage, and as we move along, as we develop, the fundamental would take place. So the main objective of this particular syllabus, or maybe particular subject, is for you to transfer the knowledge that is required for you to do your own analysis in order to pick the counters. And if someone tells you they can teach the entire financial statement, entire gamut of financial statement within, say, 6 weeks or 6 months, they can't do so because it's a vast area. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna confine the area and will be to the point. So what is exactly needed for you to do the analysis, which is needed for you to pick the right counters. So that is what will be the focus of this particular syllabus. So you don't need to worry that I'll be not going too much on the double entry. I will not gonna bombard you with IAS 1 to IAS 13 to IFRS 9. You don't need to worry about that. But I'll be teaching you, or I'll be walking you guys through the important part or important concept or theory that you guys might need to understand this particular subject. I'll be starting my webinar with here the content or the introduction to the course is only about 10 minutes. So about 20 to 30 minutes, I'll be talking about the overall market and their direction and where are we heading, at least based on my understanding. So I hope that will be helpful and insightful for you people as well. Before starting into the webinar today, I want to start off the session with an alarming stat. How many of you do know that in Sri Lanka, the financial literacy rate is one of the lowest in the world, financial literacy. So if you take the normal literacy rate, Sri Lanka is one of the highest, the best in the Asia, best in the South Asia, and one of the highest in the world at 98%. But what is literacy rate? Which is at least you can read and write your name. But that is how the literacy rate been addressed, or literacy rate been calculated or estimated. But any guesses on what is our financial literacy rate? It's just 33%, which is an alarming stat for us. 3 out of only 10 people in Sri Lanka can make their own investment decision, financial decision, and they can make some money out of their investments. Only 3 out of 10 people. The Western and development countries, the average is about 65%. That's about roughly 6 to 7 people out of 10 people. So that's why you see they develop so much, whereas we are still in the developing nation. But you can turn that course off. So not necessarily that you do need to be a student or have a degree in the finance or in accounting. Now that can be rectified with Colombo Exchange is doing so much of programs, seminars, and the stock exchange mentoring is doing, and a lot of investors they have started to study by their own, so which is a very good sign. So that is an alarming stat, and I want you guys to keep in mind, because end of the day, all of us, you, myself, if you take anyone in any profession, whether it be accountant or engineer or doctor or software engineer, whatnot, everyone is working for money, right? Money is needed. And if you don't know how to save the money, invest money, and make the money work hard for you, most of us are working hard to make the money, but the money is just lying on the savings account at 3.5%, whereas your inflation in the country is about 5%. So you're losing it out. You are earning hard-earned money, but you are keeping in the savings account, which is about only 3.5%. Inflation is 5%. You are losing out your purchasing power. So here, what I'm trying to do to some extent, I want to transfer the knowledge for you guys to show that there is an investment vehicle, is known as stock market. How can you read it? How can you invest it? What kind of a data, what kind of a subject area that you guys need to be aware of in order to make some smart investments. With that, let me get into my first session. So if you look at this chart, right, I mean, several talk about market and everything, especially after the end of the war, there was the peace dividend, the market went up by 96% and 110% back to back in year 2009 and 2010. After that, market was coming down. People called market is crashing. Then market stagnated, went up again. And after that, for about good 5 to 6 years, market was at bit stagnant level. And from the corona outbreak back in March, market came down drastically for about 4,500 points from 6,000. And there onwards, market took over. And in January 27, it touches almost 9,000 points. And after that, again, it was coming down. And recently, last 2-3 weeks, or maybe about 1.5 months, the market is looking like it's recovering, right? But let me try to give you some, in hindsight, what had happened in the market over the period of time. So let me bear with me. Let me try to introduce or tell my thesis here. And based on that, I'll try to give you an overall view how the market can be reacting in future. So let me hide this video floating control. All right. So if you look at the market, the ASPI is being shown in the orange color, whereas PE is shown in the blue color. And I know all of you know at least to some extent what is PE, which is a price to earnings ratio, which I will be going to very detail in the syllabus, in the financial statement analysis syllabus. But for time being, the PE in simple term for 1 rupees of earnings, how much investors are willing to pay. So if earn PE of 15 times mean for 1 rupee earnings of the company, investors are willing to pay 15 rupees. right? So before that, let's look at why there was a sudden pickup in the market. I mean, if you see in the USA, when the cases were going up, when I say cases, the COVID-19 cases were going up in the rocket space, the market was resilient, and in fact, it's making headlines. I mean, it's been growing at a rate 3%, 4% every day. Not only in the USA, but across the world, the stock market was up. Let's understand why, right? When the COVID-19 hit, when the businesses go into hiatus, people were losing jobs and all. The central banks across the world being proactive, and they've tried to reduce the interest rates. So reducing an interest rate, what will happen? So then the businesses can go borrow, spend, and it will be an expansionary policy. That's the main reason why the central banks want to reduce the interest rate. So they want to keep the economy running. And second thing, the central banks also printed money and passed that money into the residents' hands. So if you look at in the USA, this is the second time they're going to give about $1,200 per person to survive, to spend. So it's kind of an inducement. So what will happen? Just imagine the person has money in their hand, which is they didn't have earlier, or now they can go and borrow. I mean, in Sri Lankan context, if you want to go for a personal loan 1 year back, you have to have about, you would have paid about 17%. But now for 9%, you can get a good loan. So now you have a cheap money in your hand. So if you normally get the cheap money in the hand, what will happen? The countries like Sri Lanka, we are consumption driven. 75% of our GDP is running on consumption. So if you get a money, 100 rupee in your hand, 75% goes into consumption. But consumption, again, since we are a net importers, we import roughly 20 billion worth of products, goods and services, and we export only 10 billion, which means we are still net importers. So if you want to consume, we consume from the imported goods, like we go for a good vehicle, we'll be bringing down vehicle. We'll go for some consumer durables, or we go and build houses. So the consumption. So what happened is, with the government is closing the border for imports and interest rate coming down, so I have now extra money. I can't keep the money into the FDs because FD rate are at 4%, 5%. Inflation is skyrocketing. I can import. I can't import. The business is kind of a stagnant, so I can't put the money into the business. Then people came to the stock market. So the new money got into stock market. So that's why you see the market suddenly started to be active. In fact, in January, the average daily turnover was about 10 billion rupee. If you were in the market about 5 years, 6 years back, there was a time in 2018, we were waiting for market to hit about 300 million rupees. But in January, it hit about 10 billion rupees. So what that says is, so all those money came into the market, cheap interest rate, import is controlled, you don't have the economy is stagnant, so the money came into the stock market. So that's the reason why the overall, not only in Sri Lanka, it's been the case across the world. So the market started to run. So that's the background story of what had happened during the pandemic-induced market run. But keeping that aside, just look at about roughly about 10, 11 years of history since the post-war. If you look at the PE ratios during this period, PE ratio was up, went about 25 to 30 times. And after that only the ASPI raise. So which means people were anticipating the earnings of the stock market will be good. Why? Because war entered. So since war ended, there will be new opportunities coming in. With the new opportunities coming in, the business is going to make enough and more money, profit, hence the price will go up. So with that estimation, people estimated, okay, the market going to go run, and they push up the prices. So that's why PE went up first. Then after that, the market took over. So you can see the clear sign. I mean, PE, the yellow color, the blue color line went up first, and after that only ASPI went up. After that, the PE came down and the market came down. There was a bit of correction. But look at this particular scenario. I'm talking about last year. Now we are almost in 1 year is being end from the corona-induced pandemic kind of a market run and everything. So if you look at this one, the PE was at low one. PE never reacted. First the ASPI reacted, and after that only PE started to pick up. So the PE was at the level of 8-9 times, which was one of the lowest in the region. Whereas Vietnam was going at a rate of 20 times, and Singapore was at about 15 times. India was at 25 times. Sri Lanka was about only 8-10 times. So the reason here is the market last 2-3 years, market was not much active. People were not giving much due respect to the market. But look at the earnings of the market, the listed companies of the market. During 2016 to 2018, 2 years period, the cumulative earnings, when I say earnings, the profit of the listed companies have grown up by 65% over the 2 years time. 30%, 30%, back to back 30%, overall 65. Of course, in 2019, it dropped by 10%, and in 2020, it dropped by 14%. That's about 24. So 65 minus 24, say 25. In last 4 years, overall market has, the listed companies have given or posted 40% profit growth. So that is why the PE ratio was continuously coming down, and the people were not looking at the market, and the market was down. When the rally started, when people started to realize, okay, market had grown so much, the earnings of the companies have grown so much, then the market took over. Despite market took over, I mean, in fact, in January, which was about 100% return from the low of May, 100% in January 27. And after that, it dropped by another 30%. So roughly about 65 to 70% up from the pandemic low. Look at the PE. Now only it started to realize, and it started to come back to the historical PE level of 14 times. In Sri Lanka, in the last 10 years, our historical PE is at 14 times. So we are still at the historical PE time. Now only it has come. And it's roughly about 14.5 times. Okay, the question remains is, now we're going to see, now luckily we get into earning season. Now you see the earnings of the companies are coming down. Now you're going to see year-on-year earnings, because last March only the pandemic came in, and second week of last March, you remember, the country went into an island-wide lockdown. So the March results of most of the companies have distorted. So, but this March, they were okay. They got back to normal. People were active. The mobility index level of the Google have shown that people activities have get back to the normal level, to some extent to pre-pandemic level. So our expectation is the results during this quarter gonna be good. So given that results gonna be good, and market PE is only at 15 times. So assuming at least about 15% growth in the expected earnings, and let us keep 15 times PE, the estimation is ASPI can hit about 8,000 level for the upcoming quarters and still can trade at 15 times PE. So the question might arise, okay, does 15 times PE make sense? Definitely it makes sense. One reason is, over the last 10 years, the average PE of Sri Lanka is about 15 times. And if you look at the countries like Vietnam, Singapore, India, Bangladesh, all were at the range of 14 to 25 times. So 15 times PE seem to be normal PE levels. And given that 10 to 15% quarter-on-quarter growth, I mean, that is a very conservative estimation. Most of the research houses has estimated that the quarterly results, or at least 2021 results, will be at least about 15-20% higher than what we've seen in the last year because of the low base effect. So assuming at 15% growth at 15 times PE, so we can estimate market PE can be at, or the market level can be at 8,100 level, which is about roughly 15% appreciation from the current level, right? So the key takeaway here is, compared to the previous run, post-war run, and this run is, in post-war run, the market expected earnings to come good, and the PE levels was at 20-30 times, and when the results comes in and the ASPI started to drop, the PE level started to come down in a normal pattern, or in the drastic manner. But whereas in this run, the PE level was at extremely low at 8 times, and the market has just reacted to that. And it now we came back to 14.5 times. So that 100% growth hasn't distorted our PE levels. So PE levels, which mean what do you mean by PE levels? Whether it shows whether our market is expensive. We are not expensive yet. What is expensive? If it hits about 25-30 times is what expensive is about. That is what we hit back in 2009 and 10. Now we have just come back to our normal average levels of 15 times. Despite the market grew by almost 70%, the PE level has only come up to 15 times. And keep it still be at 15 times, and provided that earnings can grow by 15%, the ASPI has to be at 8,100 level. So how I come is not magic. So I'm just trying to use the PE multiples to the entire market. So what is the PE multiple? Which is market price divided by earnings. So now I have the market price, which is ASPI. I have PE, which is 15 times. Then I can arrive the current earnings level. Then I grow that current earnings level by 15%. I'll get the new earnings level. Then I multiply that 15 times. Then I'll get the ASPI. I'll definitely will show these calculations in our classrooms, and we can have more understanding. But time being, this is where we are in. Right? Okay, now this one, what I have done is, okay, last year I've shown in the previous graph, I shown about 11 years of ASPI or the market. In this graph, I have shown only about 1.5 years from the start of the January 2020 up to now. I have taken the one in the bottom line is the overnight liquidity rate. So how much of liquidity, when I say liquidity, extra money in the system. So the extra money in the system is an indication whether the interest rate will go up or come down. So if I can give you an example, or maybe an intuitive example, if the overnight liquidity ratio comes below 0, historically it has been the case, which means the interest rate will goes up. Why? Because banks don't have enough money. So if they don't have enough money in the system, then they don't want to lend. If they don't want to lend, how they discourage lending? By increasing the interest rate. And when they have too much of liquidity in the system, what will happen? When they have too much liquidity in the system, what will happen? They have too much of money, they need to lend. So they will reduce the interest rate, hence the interest rate will come down. So there will be a negative correlation between the overnight liquidity rate and the interest rate. So here I've taken the T-bill rate. So T-bill rate can give you a short-term interest rate fluctuation. So at the start of the year, it was about 8.5% T-bill. Remember, it hit about 11-12% not long ago. And start of 2020, it was about 8.5%. Now, the recent today's T-bill rate is about 5.2%. So I've taken up to 5%. So it had come down by 3.5%, the T-bill, which is a base rate. Now, if you see, the central bank has started to print the money more, and I expect they will print money more, and the interest rate will be at the lowest level. And we were expecting interest rate to bottom out, which means to start to get from the bottom and start to move up. And that was the case. If you see, T-bill and a few interest rates started to move up lately. But with this third wave coming in, they call it New Year cluster, that comes in, and the cases are increasing, and the people are now getting into work from home system again. I don't think so the central bank will allow the market rate to further go up. So if at all, they will push the market rate, or they keep the market rate at a single digit level. So if they keep the market rate at single digit level, what will happen? Again, the monies, whenever the FD is maturing, it will be redeposited at a lower rate, 3.5-4% if it's 1 month. 1 year, 5.5%. And inflationary pressure is going in Sri Lanka because you have money supply, cheap money, people are consuming, production is not there, import is banned. So the inflationary pressure is in. So in that case, the people don't want to keep their money in the non-performing FDs. They want to take the money and they try it up with the market. So in that case, the third wave, I mean, of course, it's a bit bad for the economy, but not as bad as the first wave and second wave. Why? Now the business owners and the people know how to navigate during this COVID-19 period. I mean, BOP had said the export-oriented business will continue without any disruptions with the bio bubble being in place. Now the banks know how to work. And if you take Keels on supermarket, earlier days, they can only handle up to 100 orders per day. Now they can handle about 10,000 orders per day. So everyone now know how to navigate around the the pandemic induced lockdown. So, and I don't expect personally that the government will go for a countrywide, island-wide lockdown. If at all, there will be a pocket-size lockdown here and there. But I guess that the economy will continue. So in that case, the third wave is kind of a blessing in disguise for the market. Why? Because interest rate will be continued to stay low. So interest rate continues to stay low is better for the market, because interest rate and the market has a negative correlation again. So interest rate goes down, the people will come to the stock market, and vice versa. Here I also have given in the October, there was a bit of scare, again, something similar to this, but the cases were about 500 levels. Now we are at 1,500, 2,000 level. The market didn't have much of reaction. If at all, there was a very small reaction, and the people started to come back and buy the shares. And in fact, from there until January 27, market went up to almost 50-60% gain. So the people now waiting for the opportunity to buy. And the pandemic, I don't think so. If it'll not going to have a major impact in the market, mainly because the people have now adjusted to navigate in the pandemic. So that's the main reason. And I expect market to be stagnant, or maybe started to gradually pick up. So here is the timing. So now we are almost at the start of the year. So we started the year at 7,154, went up to 9,000 level, came back to 7,000 again, went up to 7,500 at this level. Again, we are back at 7,100 level. So we are basically at stagnant level. If you look at the global all world index, the index up by 10%. The US index is up by about 8 to 10% again, but us, we are still at stagnant level. So if at all, this might give you an opportunity for you to pick some fundamentally strong counters. Why? Because there are strong earnings coming in your way. So the financial statement analysis, where I'll be talking about the fundamental, that will give you an idea, the important concepts for you to do your own analysis and pick the fundamentally right counters. So in this graph, or in this particular slide, the main takeaway point is, of course, there's a third wave in, but with the third wave coming in, central bank will have to keep the interest rate at lower level. And we see the overnight liquidity rate is going up. So interest rate will continue to stay low. Hence, the money will start to come, or if at all, will be at the market, because they have no option. Cheap money, can't import, can't do the business. Then they can't invest in the FD rate also, because FDs are at one of the lowest. Hence, they will come back to the market. So market will see some positive momentum, if at all, to the certain level. Okay, now this one I've did an analysis. This one, of course, I have done the analysis for about 3 months, from August to December. During that period, overall market went up by 30%. So that is what overall market cap. Here, what I wanted to point to you guys is the market run was induced by only about a handful of counters. 3 to 4 counters accounted for roughly 25% of the turnover during the period. So you know the counters, I don't need to name it. So most of your attention was on the 4 counters. And remaining 275 odd companies haven't seen much of attraction. So there are a handful of very good fundamentally strong counters being neglected by the investors. So that's what I'm trying to show here is, in stock market, there are about roughly 20 odd sectors. And out of 20 odd sectors, the one I've highlighted in the green haven't seen the much of appreciation as overall market had seen. Right? That's what I'm trying to draw in. Especially look at banks. Of course, people talk bit negative about banks. I'll come to that point. Of course, there are negative factors, but there are a lot of positive factors also. Look at telco, the new normal, data consumption. We are consuming data now. So telco had only grown by 12%. Insurance companies, to some extent, food staples. Most of the people now bulking up. They are storing. So food staples is one of the positive. Real estate, low interest rate environment. People are now back to looking for what you call dwelling, looking for housing. So real estate is one supposed to do good. and there are a few other areas. So the key point here is, if you look at that, the 5 sectors accounted for 75% of the gain, and the remaining sectors haven't seen much of the money or much of the turnover coming in. So if you can do some thorough analysis about the market to understand about what are the other sectors there, what are the fundamentally strong counters there, what are the counters that would expected to do good with the growth in economy, then you can still pick right counters and you can invest for long and you can get the enough return. So I would call it inflation adjusted return. So end of the day, the main demand for investors are the inflation. So you keep your 100 rupee in FD at 5%, you get 105 rupee, but inflation will go to 7.5%. That's my estimation by end of this year. Why? Because money supply, people have more money, not much of production, import is controlled. So very small items are there to consume, and a lot of people are now asking the items, the price will go up, a simple economic theory. So the price level goes up, inflation peaks up. So I say inflation at 7.5%, and your FD rate is 5%. So you are losing out your 2.5% had to invest your entire investment on the FD itself. So you need to look into stock market as a bit more positive. Again, I'm telling on record, don't put your entire savings into the stock market as well, because it's a risky investment, not in Sri Lanka, across the board. You can invest roughly around 20 to 30% of your savings, and you can invest based on your age factor. If you are young, you are in a good paid business or you good paid profession, you can invest about 60 to 70% of your savings. If you're at 45, 50, you have more needs, then you can invest about 10 to 15%. But don't stay away from the market. If you look at the global market average, so insurance companies in USA and UK, they invest roughly about 30 to 40% of the income, or maybe the premium that they collected, in the stock market. 40 to 50%. Why? Because it's inflation adjusted return. But in Sri Lanka, if you look at insurance companies, they invest only about 7.5% in the stock market. If you look at EPF or ETF, in other countries, the pension fund invest about 40% in the stock market. In Sri Lanka, EPF and ETF invest only about 2.5–3% in the stock market. So which means we don't see stock market as an investment opportunity, but it has a lot of investment opportunities. I mean, end of the day, I always tell in my seminar that don't look at market as ASPI. ASPI can go up and it can come down. It's a collective of 270 odd counters. And always look a counter as your company. Say, for example, now take a Dialog, for example. Data play. Already data consumption, data revenue contribution have overtaken the voice. You and me are using Zoom. You and me are consuming more data. So who's going to benefit? Either Dialog or SLT or Mobitel. Through Mobitel, SLT going to benefit. Do you think Dialog will go bankrupt in another 5 years? I don't think. So in that case, you buy Dialog, even market crash, Dialog has NAV, net asset value. They can sell and they can give the money. I mean, if at all, if they go to that level. So this is an example I would like to tell. Don't look at market as a overall. ASPI goes up, comes down, don't get panic. Pick good 5 to 8 counters is more than enough in Sri Lankan market. Good 5 to 8 counters. Then monitor that counters in the fundamental way, read their quarterly reports, read their annual reports, make adjustments. And if they get you a certain return, say 15%, sell it, get into another counter, or maybe realize the profit. So that's how you have to navigate in this market. So you shouldn't be away from the market. You have to pick the counters. But again, I'm telling, don't put your entire 100% in the market because it's a risky business. One more housekeeping announcement, guys. If at all, if you guys have any questions relevant to what I'm talking about, you can put in the chat. I'll try to take it then and there. If not, if you have any questions about overall market or maybe in the syllabus, then I have a question and answer time end of this webinar. Then we can take up the question over there. So it's a small announcement for you guys if at all you guys have any questions. This one, guys, in Sri Lanka, of course, the market is active since 1985 for about good 35 years, but it wasn't as active as recent past. So from the end of the war in 2009, for about 21 years, the market is being active, but 21 years is not that enough for us to, do some data gathering and data empirical studies. So what I have done is I've taken this from a particular research done on the global equity. So if you look, the overall 35 years in the countries, so I've given the countries like Australia, Italy, Belgium, France, Germany, and all. The blue color bar shows what's the return given by the equity stock market. It's over the 30 years period compared with the bonds and bill. So it has always given you an inflation adjusted return over the 30 years of period time. 30-year period time. So the equity in other countries is one of the main investment vehicle. And over the 30 years, you will get inflation adjusted return. On top of that, it also is an option. I mean, more people might think if the economy is going through a recession, then you shouldn't invest in the market. Not like that. So if economy is going through the recession, take companies like Nestle, maybe company like Dalak, they are mature company. So their demand for them will still be there. And they don't have any other option. So they get so much of earnings. They don't have any other new business ventures to reinvest in. So they will pay it as dividend. So you can get some dividend paying counters. You can pick some dividend paying counters and you can invest in that. So the stock market is a all season investment. It's not necessarily only for a growth stage and not necessarily only for recession. You can invest in the market in either way, whether the economy is going through the recession or whether the economy is going through the expansion. You can still find and sector rotate and can earn good return if you know the fundamentals of how to invest. So that is for to drive home that message only. I put this one. To the take home message from this particular slide is market in the other countries have given inflation adjusted 30-year or maybe 27 years return is one of the highest compared to the other investment vehicles. I'm getting a few questions from the market P. How to get the market P? Is there any source we can enroll to learn stock market investment depth, proper direction? The situation where fundamental strong stocks have been on hold. Example, let them investment. It's risky. So will gain tax. It's a risky over Sri Lanka in terms of paying debt. What is going okay? So the market is volatile. So those are the questions I'll be checking after this thing. So they have a quite interesting question on the market going to default. Say, I don't expect that Sri Lanka will default their 1 billion payment in this June. They have enough 4 billion of reserves. And if at all, there'll be a few players come and rescue. But again, not writing off that country is defaulting, but 90% probability that country will not be defaulting in the 1 billion loan coming up in this 1st June. Okay, with that, let me get into the other one. Okay, this is the one I want to stop and talk for a while. The market gurus are talking about timing the market, which not everyone can perfect. Even Warren Buffett can't do that perfectly timing the market, but nevertheless, let's try. I mean, nothing wrong in trying, right? So what I'm trying to give here is, guys, first I'm trying to get a view, where are we in terms of the economic cycle? So my estimation, we are in draft. It is not because of COVID-19. If you look at the market since 2015 or the economy since 2015, our average economic growth around 3% to 3.5%. And our potential GDP is somewhere around 5 to 6%, right? So what previous government wanted is they wanted like a private companies to take over the economic growth. They want private sector to be part of the economic growth. The previous government before that, the current regime, which was there before 2005, their thinking is kind of what China used back then. So they want the government to spend, government to do the infrastructure, and through that they will be kickstart the economic growth. So we see about good 8-9% growth before 2015 era, and after that the government shifted from the government spending one to the private sector spending one, and they've restricted government spending and everything. Then our market, our GDP growth was around 3 and 3.5%. But what is our potential GDP growth? Somewhere around 5 to 6%. And Port City can be a game changer. Of course, there are few political views, but despite political views, it's already been done. We have already taken that, we have given that to China's company to develop. 99 years lease, government has control, the reclamation is already done. So it's just a matter of getting that bill passed. It's known as the special economic zone. That is not the first economic zone in the world. There are about 5,000 special economic zone. In India itself, there are about 380 odd special economic zone. So that is something you need to have different laws. I mean, I know I'm a bit deviating, but just to give a readers an understanding. I mean, can you bring 1 billion of your money and invest in Sri Lanka with the current existing law? It takes about roughly 2 years to solve a business case. So if you are a foreign investor, you are taking a currency risk, you are coming to the country, you are taking the political risk. On top of that, you have to wait for the verdict from the Supreme Court to get for about 2 years. So no one going to bring the money here. For that purpose, you need to have a different set of law. But of course, that should be governed by the Sri Lankan government. So they have the overview committee. But had the Port City bill been there, rest is assured that Sri Lanka can attract roughly 5 billion worth of foreign direct investment to the Port City itself. That is proven. You can go and check something called Songdo in South Korea, which is similar to Sri Lanka's Port City. So they have done that in the Bay Area itself. Go and check Dubai International Financial Center back in 2004. Both of those countries have seen a growth in the FDIs. So Sri Lanka is at the moment, we are facing a currency crisis. Why? Because we don't have enough dollar. If the enough dollar coming into a market through FDIs, which is kind of an equity investment, why? If the foreign companies come and put up a building in Port City, they can't take the building and go like they do for the market, the securities. So if they invest in stock market, they can sell it and go. If they invest in the government bonds or bills, they can sell it and go. But if they bring the money and put up a building, they can't take the building and go, right? So the building is there. It's kind of an equity investment. So we are expecting the Port City to bring in some sort of review or kind of a relaxation to our Forex scenario. But again, we have to wait and see how the bill debate gonna go. But if you ask me, apart from any political view, I'm strongly supporting a Port City because we needed that at this level of time, and that might open up new opportunities. Look at the business ranking, business doing index. Sri Lanka is at 99th level. And look at Singapore, they are at #1 level. So how are we going to compete? Vietnam is somewhere on 20 or 25. We are at 100. So we can't compete with them. But had we come up with the new economic zone in Port City, then we can compete with them because we have good geographic location. So if Port City comes, that will be a game changer for our economy again. So that's a bit different from the area. So now the point here is, according to me, I expect market is in bit of draft. And if you look at in theory, the stock market performance is strongly correlated with economic performance. There is a reason for that as well. I'm just not making any numbers out of it. If you look, say, for example, you take a company, maybe John Keells. I'm just taking the number. So John Keells is in about 8 to 10 sectors. They are into transportation, they are into finance, they are into FMCGs, they are into insurance. So if the economy is doing good, people have more money, then the John Keells is going to get more money, right? So their profit will go up. If the profit goes up, then people would like to buy their share. So then there will be demand created that the price will go up, the stock market improves. So if the GDP improves, then definitely the market also will have to perform. So that is the theory. So since we are in the draft and we are going through a bit of expansion, okay, I want to make a caveat here. We don't know how the third wave going to span out. It's alarmingly bit dangerous, 2,000 cases every day. And we are running out of ICU beds and everything. We are running out of vaccines. So keep that in mind. But we are having some sort of one protection is almost a few million people have already got the first jab. And now people know how to navigate around this pandemic-induced lockdown. People have now started to work from home. The banks have now started to use the platforms, online platforms. Even the people who were reluctant to use online platforms now started to use online platform. So we now know how to navigate around that. So that's a positive side of it. So we never know where are we heading, but had we could able to contribute, if we can control this pandemic or maybe third wave successfully, then I definitely expect our economy to bounce back, at least from the low base of last year. And with the government-induced consumption, the economy will go up. So in that case, market will about to perform good. So then what are a few sectors that we can look into? I mean, I'm not going to go into very detail about it. Maybe when I do my course, I'll talk about each sectors per day. If you look at the first one is the consumer staples, like FMCG, beverage, and personal care. The companies like Hemas into the personal care business, they have Marika, they have Shield, and they have hospitals. So I'm not, again, guys, a very big disclaimer. The counters that I'm talking, just for illustration purpose, it is not a buy or sell recommendation. Please don't hold me, and please don't close your eyes and go buy it. Do some fundamental research. So I'm just making up a few counters to give you some examples. Consumer staples, the companies such as Cargill's, companies such as Ceylon Cold Stores, the Colombo Cold Stores. Why? Because now if you see again during this the New Year cluster, or maybe during the New Year period also, people have started consume more. Now the average basket size have increased, and of course the footfall, the people visiting to the market has reduced drastically, but the average basket size have increased. Now people are started to buy for at least 2-3 weeks. Earlier they buy for a week, maybe for about 5 days. Now people have started to buy for about 2-3 weeks. Now we see a good weather condition prevailing in northern east area in the central part of the country. So the crops are coming up. So I expect they will be getting enough supply from the farmers as well. So hence I believe the consumer staples like FMCGs and retail businesses are to perform good. And the personal care with these sanitizers, soaps, and personal cares and everything. And in fact, Hemas has one of their main brand being sold at Bangladesh. Bangladesh is about 100 million population country, is about 5 times of Sri Lanka. So they might be getting good revenue coming from them as well. But it's a very tiny, but still it makes some sort of contribution in the bottom line. So it's about retail. The banks and NBFIs. So NBFIs, I'm not much positive. So what is NBFI? Non-bank financial companies such as the finance companies like Singers and Central Finance. The banks, of course, I'm a bit positive given that the bank prices have come down drastically. Remember, commercial bank has always trading at 2 times book value. So it's been always premium. So if commercial bank is trading at 2 times books value, then HNB would trade at 1.5 times. Sambat Bank would trade at 1.5 times. So what is this 1.5 times and 2 times? That is called price to book value. So I'll be explaining about that in the course content. I don't have much time in explaining about that at this webinar. But if you look at that, now the price to book value of the banks are less than 1 time. It's roughly around 0.6 times, 0.7 times. Commercial bank is trading at 0.8 times. So what does that mean? If the asset value of commercial bank is say 100 rupee, earlier days, if they were trading at 200 rupee, now, despite they have asset value of 100 rupee, now it's trading at 90 rupees, less than the book value. Again, there's a reason, guys, why they are trading at less than 2 times or 1 times book value, because there's something called Basel III. Guys, again, I'll be talking about these bank-related ratios also in my course content. I don't want to go into very deep detail about this. So you can't expect banks to trade at 2 times again. So it won't come back to 2 times again in our levels. If at all there's some crazy buying happens. Why? Because if the Basel III comes in, whenever there is a loan growth, there will be more impairment. When there will be more impairment, their profit level will come down. So if the profit level, the loan growth goes up, then the banks will have to go for right issues. That's why you see most of the banks coming for right issues, because they have to follow the Basel III requirement, which Sri Lankan banks have adapted since 2018. So if the loan growth happens, then the bank will come for the money from you, right issues. So that is basically the numerators. So what is the ratio is the risk-weighted assets divided by the capital. So whenever the risk-weighted assets or loan grows, then the capital also need to grow. So if your capital grows, then your equity position increases, your profit stagnates, then your ROE level would come down. So going forward, banks ROE levels won't be as high as 20, 25 times that you see about 5, 6 years back. It will come back to about 12 to 13 times. Why? Purely because of Basel III. But if you ask me, should banks trade less than one-time book value? I will say no. If you look at USA banks, it's trading at one-time book value, one time, 1.2 times. In Sri Lanka, we are trading at 1.75. So for me, at least commercial banks should trade at 1.2 times of book value, and HNB and Sampath Bank should trade at around 0.75 or 0.8 of book value. So that's my understanding about banks. Take telecommunication, which is a winner, right? So now data. If you look at Dialog, they've said that in 2020, the average average data usage per month in Sri Lanka was around 5 GB per person per month. You and me were using only 5 GB. I'm talking, sorry, in 2019. In 2020, that have gone up to 8 GB. So that is about more than 50% growth from 5 GB to 8 GB. In rural area, they see the people have now started to adapt this new normal. I'm not saying that it's easy for the rural people to adapt, but nevertheless, they have to adapt because it's a pandemic-induced new normal. And this is not the new normal this is the new normal is going to stay. Say, for example, if you take the growth in dip products because of glove, I don't expect the demand to be there forever. Why? This sudden demand gone up. And once the vaccination effect comes in, once the people started to vaccinate it, the coronavirus started to move away from us. I don't think so. People will use the gloves as they used during the pandemic. But the data one is here to stay. Now people have adapted to the data growth. The people have adapted to the data, the usage of data. You and me are consuming data. If not for pandemic, we probably would have met in person and I'll be lecturing. So the data consumptions are taking place. Now the calls are in Zoom or in MS Teams. So the data is there to stay. If you look at healthcare and pharmaceuticals, again, it's a bit of no-brainer because of pandemic-induced the healthcare-related efficacies and healthcare-related attention. People have now started to be very focal about it, be very focused about it. So the pharmaceutical companies are also to benefit. And the Sunshine and the other one is Hemas have one of the good few principles in the world. Top 10 principles having their agreement with Hemas and Sunshine. So those are two counters, but you have to be careful. The currency depreciation will have an impact on that. So we can talk about that once we get into our syllabus and everything. So transportation logistics, you see Expo Lanka is doing good. Margins are good. So I expect that margin to be there at least for about 6 months because the air travel hasn't come back to the pre-pandemic level yet. So still Expo Lanka has the say of dictating the margin towards the exporters. And they have now expanded to Canada and they're expanding into a bit of South America. So their volume game also there. I'm not saying that Expo is a good buy or not, but the transportation and logistics are a good place to be in. Manufacturing, especially the construction value chain manufacturing, I'm a bit positive. Tiles, especially because in Sri Lanka, roughly 40% of the market is only owned by the locally manufactured tiles, and 60% were imported. So when the import had been cut short, then of course the RCL is dominating the local market, local tiles market. So they'll have a good quarters coming in. But again, one caveat that now government has allowed to import tiles. So in that case, the playing field might be leveled. But nevertheless, now the imported tiles will be as same as the locally manufactured tiles. So you don't see much of issues getting into RCL way, but you have to look at PE levels, you have to look at PBV levels before you get into the counters. Textiles, which is one of the positive counters for me. Why? Because we export most of our textiles related items to USA. USA is roughly buying about 75 to 80% of our textile. And given that USA is getting back from these pandemic issues, now cases are coming down, they have been vaccinated, people are now moving out, and they have low interest rate environment with that $1.5 trillion stimulus package from Joe Biden, putting about $1,200 in the hand of the American public. So the consumption have gotten back. So I expect textiles, and more than that, it's export driven. 100% of earnings reported at USD levels, and only 65% of the expenses are in the LKR. So in the LKR, depreciation will be definitely a boost for textile related export companies. Real estate is another big winner. Why? Low interest rate environment, people like to invest in real estate. They would be buying lands. The rates are cheap as 7.5%. So the real estate also good investment opportunities. But you have to be careful. If you look at the price to book value of real estate, will always be 0.5 times. So when you look at 0.5 times and you expect, okay, it's supposed to trade at 1 times, you can't jump and buy. Why? There's a reason why it's trading at 0.5 times. I'll tell the reason in the classroom because I need a bit of more explanation. Why? Because the real estate, normally every year they revalue their lands. So if they revalue their land, the asset value will go back to the market price. So if you want to sell the company right now, then you can't sell your company at the market price. So you have to sell at lower than market price, right? So that's the reason why real estate companies will always trade at lower than 1 time book value. So don't look at real estate companies trading at lower than 1 time book value. Okay, very good investment opportunity. You shouldn't do that. You need to read and understand the industry dynamic of that. Then any export oriented business, why our currency is depreciating, and I expect it will depreciate further. The reason is because the low interest rate environment, we print more money, we import more stuff, and import relaxation is happening gradually. Inflationary pressure is happening, and our reserves are coming down, and we'll have to repay 1 billion worth of repayment by of June. So that will bring down from 4 billion to 3 billion. So I expect currency depreciation to take place in our country. So better to be in a inflation currency exchange hedge industry such as export oriented business. So that's about it, guys, in terms of where are we and where we can go. So if you know how to pick your counters, how to read the industries, how to read your financial statements, then you are in a good shape to start invest and make money. Again, I'm an advocate of a long-term investor. I've spent good 6.5 years in equity research. So I've done research and I'm an advocate for long-term. I'm not saying that short-term investment, day trading is bad, but I don't have expertise, to be honest. You have to be up in the game and you have to be careful. Every trade you are spending about 1.5%, 1.12% on the brokerage. So if your return is not more than 1.12%, then you're losing it out. So you have to be careful on that as well. But if you select a few counters, 5-6 counters, invest and wait for about 1 year, 1.5 years, for sure, you will have inflation adjusted return coming into your way. So that's about it in terms of how the market and what are the industries or the sectors that may poised to benefit in the coming years or the coming days. With that, guys, let me get into now only I'm coming into the content of the financial syllabus. Again, you guys have to be careful. I'm not going to teach about entire accounting. I'm not going to ask you to prepare financial statements. That is not part of this lecture. Here, it'll be mainly focusing on what are the areas, what are the statements, what are the techniques that you have to use in order to pick right counters, in order to understand the financial statement. So that is the main objective. So I'll be talking about briefly principle of accountings, and I'll be talking about objective of financial statements, and I'll be spending a lot of time on interpreting the financial statements and interpreting the ratio analysis and how you can compare. So when it comes to the ratio analysis, guys, I don't think so. Not everyone, even our back in the days in A-levels or maybe in CIMA or in accounting, not everyone teaches about the banking sector ratios, because that's one of the difficult ratios to explain, understand, and calculate. But I'm going to take that, and I also want to explain about the banking sector ratios also, because banking sectors are one of the sectors I would positively look into. So I'll be teaching about that as well. Then I'll be going through the financial positions, which is balance sheet, guys. So me, balance sheet is one of the main source documents. It shows me how much of debt the company has. Can they go for more debt? How much of equity? How much of leverage that they can have? What's an asset turnover? So financial position will give you a gamut of information about your company, to make a better investment decision. So is your income statement. So income statement are the one, guys, one of the main thing that you look at: GP margin, gross profit margin, net profit margin, and the ROE. So what is ROE? The return on investment that you are making, return on equity. So do you make adequate return, or should you invest in another company, or should you not invest in the stock market and invest only in the FD? You will be getting a good return. So those things I'll be teaching about in the income statement. And when it comes to the income statement, guys, that is where we are talking about the earnings, and those earnings per share will be helpful for you to understand the price to earnings, PE ratio. So what is the trailing 12 months PE ratios? What is a forward PE? Now people are talking about forward PE, people are talking about trailing PE. You might be a bit confused. So I'll be telling you what is actually mean and how you can make a better informed decision from that. And I also will be focusing on something called cash flow, guys, because that is something most of the people have missed. Even a lot of analysts missed about cash flow statement. The cash flow statement are another important source document. Income statement is prepared based on something called accrual basis. The cash flow statement prepared based on cash basis. Like if cash comes in, they show; if cash goes out, they'll deduct it. But income statement, the accountant can play some within their rules, and they can do some window dressing. So you see, some companies make profit only because of selling some assets, the capital gain on assets. So does that an underlying profit, or will that continue? It won't continue. So you need to understand those things. I mean, you look at the profit level from last year, this year profit went up by 50%, you jump and buy the counter, then you realize that 50% up just because of one-off reasoning. Next year, the profit down. So those things you will understand from knowing income statement and the cash flow statement. So these are the areas, guys, I'll be focusing on when I'm doing this financial, the statement analysis lecture. And the ratio analysis is one of the main thing. I would spend, again, a good amount of time. Why? Because that is one of the main the ratios that you need to know. If you look at any research reports, they do valuation based on these three methods: asset-based method, relative-based method, and the discounted cash flow method. So to do the discounted cash flow method, of course, you need to know about income statement and all. I don't think so that from an investor point of view, without having a background of accounting, that you can master at it. But nevertheless, if you try, you can. But this is something you can easily do, something called relative-based valuation. So the PE-based valuation, PBV-based valuation, EV/EBITDA. So why EV/EBITDA should be used, why price to earnings should be used, everything will be explained in my lecture. And I'll be going through these profitability ratios as well. The main ratios for me are the profitability ratios and the solvency ratios. That is where I learn about a debt position of the company. The company has taken too much of debt, or company had take more debt. So those things I'll be talking about in the solvency ratio part. So these are the 5 ratios that I'll be talking about. Within 5 ratio headings, there are about good 20 ratios that I'll be teaching about. And relative-based valuation, I'll be doing a few calculation how you can value your organization based on this multiples as well. So here is where I'm talking about multiples, something called what is PE multiples, how I can use PE multiples to derive a valuation for the company, how I can check, excuse me, how I can double check whether the value is actually a correct way they have did it. So this will give you an understanding for you to read the research report done by the research people, and you can easily understand it, and will start make sense if you know what's happening behind it. So that will be about it, guys, in terms of this introductory webinar. And if you guys have any questions, you can put in the chat. I'll be taking a few questions that have come so far, and we can wrap up the class after the session. So thank you so much for being attentive.